The city of Austin's been hyped up for decades, frankly. But are the best days behind us? Is it all hype? Or is it still worth it to move here? You're gonna hear opinions everywhere, whether people say that it's overpriced, it's overcrowded, or locals love to say it just ain't what it used to be. I've lived here my entire life, and I've watched Austin evolve, not just change. Stick around because I'm gonna walk you through what's actually fact and what's fear-based. Let you know if it's a good investment or a good life decision to move here to the city of Austin. Frankly, Austin's not the small, sleepy live music town that it used to be. I've seen it grow and evolve into a booming metropolitan area. And honestly, is that a bad thing? It depends on who you ask. Some locals that have been here for decades absolutely can't stand it, but people that have relocated here and chosen the Austin lifestyle absolutely love it and they never want to leave. We'll start by covering the past 5 years ago here in the Austin market. So back during COVID times, around 20 to 22, we definitely saw a huge boom, just like we did a lot of places across the country. Interest rates were really low, and that made the demand for housing really, really high. That coupled with the fact that people could relocate and work remotely for their jobs really kind of made Austin a hyped area to be because people had heard about it, but they might not have been able to live here previous to COVID. But now that remote work became an option, people had options on where they could live, and a lot of people chose Austin. During those times, it was really competitive for buyers. There were multiple offers on just about every home that I put an offer in on for my clients here. It was difficult to get your offer accepted. You had to offer way over asking price. You had to waive appraisal. You had to do all kinds of things just to make sure your offer was competitive when you had 15 or 20 other offers on the same house. Luckily, my wife and I bought our house here in South Austin. We live in Onion Creek. Right before COVID, we bought in 2019 before the pandemic hit. So we got our house for a pretty good deal. We didn't have a lot of competition. And then when interest rates dropped during COVID, we locked in a super low interest rate on our primary home and all of our investment properties. So luckily, we have opportunity to have a really low interest rate, and we also paid a low price for our home. So in 2022, 2023, we saw interest rates kind of start creeping up, and they actually hiked up considerably over those years. So we saw a shift in the market. We kind of saw homes that were on the market just kind of sitting stagnant for a long time. We didn't have as much competition from buyers because they were hesitant to make a move with the higher interest rates. And the market hadn't quite corrected itself yet. So values were still pretty high, but interest rates were also high. So it made it kind of difficult for those buyers to get off the fence, so to say. And then in 2024 to 2025, we kind of saw this weird start, stop market. What was happening is those buyers that had kind of been on the fence for the past couple of years had finally kind of reached their breaking point, but they weren't necessarily ready to commit to putting an offer in on a home until they saw small dips in the interest rate. So you would see the interest rates go down, you'd see offers increase, and then you'd see interest rates go back up, and then it'd go kind of stagnant for a little while. Ultimately, buyers kind of had to make a decision, at least some of them. You know, life happens, right? People go through divorces, people get job changes, people get transferred. There's just all kinds of things that happen in life that can really kind of expedite and be a catalyst for those buyers that were on the fence, ultimately just getting tired of kicking the can down the road, finally making a decision. So now as we're approaching 2026, we're seeing a little bit of forward momentum in a good way coming into the Austin market. You know, buyers are trying to make a move before the holidays. A lot of people are expecting a lot more competition and a bit of a boom in 2026. So right now could be one of those rare opportunities to strike while the iron's hot when home values are still down and interest rates are still a little bit high. Because if we see interest rates drop, we're not only going to see an increase in buyer demand because improved interest rates, but we're also going to see an improvement in buyer demand just because what I talked about earlier, that kind of life happens type situation. People can only hold out and wait on the market to be better for so long until they just kind of are forced into making a decision. So both of those things coupled together, I predict seeing a considerable increase in buyer demand sometime in early to mid 2026, maybe towards the end of the year, depending on what happens with the interest rates. Now, you guys already know that I'm an Austin real estate expert. However, I'm also part of the fastest growing brokerage in the history of the industry, and it's frankly not even close. We're also voted the most innovative brokerage in the industry. So that means that I have a connection with agents in just about every city and state across the country. So Don't only reach out to me if you're interested in relocating and purchasing a home here in Austin. I'd also love to help connect you with the best agent in your market if you have a home that you need to sell before or as part of the process of moving to Austin. The hidden benefit there is if you have two agents working for the same company that know each other well, working together, we can make the transition a lot more smooth for you if you're relocating from a different state or a different city. It just makes the communication a lot stronger, and it makes that whole process a lot easier on you. So let's talk about what everybody really came here for, which is the home prices here in the Austin area. We saw about an 11% correction since the peak during COVID, so things have started to get more and more affordable over the years compared to what they were in 2020 to 2022. And it's been rebounding kind of ever since, up until 2025, but like I said earlier, we're starting to see a little bit of an upward swing or an upward tick in home values here in Austin. We've got a little bit more buyer demand, so we're seeing a lot of forward momentum going into 2026. That being said, Austin's still considerably more affordable if you're comparing it to relocating from places like Los Angeles or New York or even Portland. The thing to really think about is we could be in, again, one of those rare sweet spots where you can get a home for a really, really good deal on the market here in Austin before we kind of see that upward swing in demand and values, and home values are likely going to continue to increase like they have. But it's not very often that we see prices dip down and then not go back up. As a matter of fact, Austin was recently ranked the #1 buyer's market in the entire United States. And I'd put my money on the fact that that's not going to last forever. Austin's still a really popular place. There is a lot of hype around it. People still want to move and live here. The next thing that I think is important to consider is the growth and what that does to the job market, right? And what's happening with the Austin job market. So over the past few years, we have seen some big tech companies make some layoffs that have been kind of substantial. Icon, which is in my field, it's a 3D printed housing company. I'm in real estate, so I keep a close eye on things like that. They actually laid off quite a few employees over the past few years. Now, that being said, these big tech giants that have located themselves strategically here in Austin, they're not going anywhere. They're just gonna make a few layoffs here and there as the economy shifts, as the market changes, but they've made a long-term investment in the city of Austin. So I don't foresee in the foreseeable future, or even the long-term future, of any of those companies just shutting down, closing their doors, and moving elsewhere. The next thing that's really important to pay attention to when we're talking about the job market in Austin is what's going to be happening in healthcare over the next 5-10 years. So it's projected that we're going to see at least UT Austin putting about $2.5 billion into new medical towers. And that growth doesn't just hit the heart of the city. There's tons of biotech and healthcare industries that are expanding in the Austin area. To the tune of billions of dollars, right? Not just at UT, but the greater Austin area is seeing expansion in places north of the city and south of the city, and it's gonna be substantial. I think we're seeing about 7,000 new jobs per year right now in the healthcare field, and I think that's going to go up as these expansions take place. And what does that do to the market, right? As the job market gets bigger and bigger and the demand for people gets more and more, the home values are going to increase, the demand for housing is going to be more competitive, and it's going to be harder to find your place here in the city of Austin as the city grows. With all of this growth, blue-collar demand is also really, really high. So that's really good for the overall job market because you're not just going to have jobs in healthcare or in tech. It's all the things that surround and support those industries growing are also going to see an increase in demand for jobs, which is good for everybody. Now, Austin's not a fix and flip play right now. It's not some get rich quick scheme. It's not something where you're gonna buy a house and then 6 months later sell it for a huge profit. It's a long-term investment. These companies are here for the long play. And when I talk to clients about building wealth through real estate and building up their equity, I always consider it a long play. We're not all professional renovators. We're not all professional investors that are gonna fix and flip properties like we see on HGTV. So if you're planning on building, a life for yourself here in Austin, I think it's a really smart play. If you're gonna be here for a while, I think you're gonna see some really big upsides and long-term growth and equity. Little personal anecdotal story. My family actually bought property out in Dripping Springs, about 57 acres, back in the 70s. Now, Admittedly, there was really nothing in Dripping Springs back in the 70s. It was probably, maybe one stoplight, probably a stop sign at that point. It was moving out to the boonies. That being said, as Austin has grown, so have the suburbs, Dripping Springs included. So what they paid next to nothing for back in the 70s is really, really, really valuable. I'm not gonna put a number on it, but it's luxury living at this point. So it's worth a considerable amount of money, and that long-term investment really, really did pay off. So the next thing I kind of want to dive into is new opportunities and new construction in particular. New construction brings a wealth of opportunities for people considering relocating to Austin. Even with higher rates, builders are offering insane incentives to get buyers to choose their properties and their developments right now. So what ultimately happened is during the boom, when we saw interest rates really, really low and demand really, really high during COVID, builders kind of got a little bit overzealous, right? They started making decisions and starting projects, expecting that boom to kind of continue. And to this day, they still haven't broken ground on everything that they've already purchased so far as the lots go, and they've got permitted. So they're still continuing to add inventory to the Austin market when there's really not the buyers there for it. So they're having to sell it at a steep discount and offer these kind of insane incentives just to get people in the door, which is great for people like you. You've got places like Goodnight Ranch and Easton Park that are a little bit closer to Austin, more urban core, I would say, kind of just on the outskirts. And then you've got places like the ranches at Dripping Springs, you've got Sawyer Ranch, you've got these other places that are kind of more in the suburbs, but you can get a luxury home for considerably cheaper than you would if you were to go to a place like Westlake Hills, for example. And you've also got a lot more space in those kind of more suburban areas out towards Dripping Springs, up towards Cedar Park. And there's a ton of these master plan communities that have, the luxuries and the conveniences like a pool and a clubhouse and, office spaces and things like that really kind of make it feel a lot more convenient to live, even if you're on the outskirts. So this is probably in every video that's ever been made about moving to the city of Austin, but I'll repeat myself. I'm sure I've said this in other videos. It's hot here. The cool part about Austin, though, is there's plenty of ways to cool off. You've got places like Barton Springs, which is where I'm hanging out right now. You've got Zilker Park, you've got Hamilton Pool, you've got Lake Travis. Those are all great places to go kind of beat the heat when it's really hot outside. And then with the growth of the city, you're seeing a lot more talent in the culinary field kind of come to the city of Austin. You've got Michelin award-winning restaurants, you've got James Beard award-winning chefs, and it's not just fancy food either. There's a ton of really fine dining that you can really enjoy here in the city of Austin. But just as much so, you can enjoy things like street tacos and food trucks and burgers. So the world kind of really is your oyster here in Austin when it comes to what it is you want to eat and how much money you want to spend. You're always going to find a great bite to eat. This isn't something new to the city of Austin, but something I absolutely love about it is you can find live music every single night. And it's not just on 6th Street. There's tons of music spread throughout the city, spread throughout the suburbs. Dripping Springs has the Songwriter Festival. Buda has Buda Fest. I mean, it's just absolutely awesome that no matter where you're located throughout the greater Austin area, you can always catch a show. And that's also a great way to meet people, right? If you want to find your tribe, if you relocate to Austin, one of the best ways to do that is to go out to a music venue and catch music that you like, because chances are the people that like that music are people that you're going to get along with. Austin may be different, but it's still Austin. It's still beautiful, it's still weird in the best kind of way, and it's still a place that a lot of people love calling home. So let's dive into kind of the psychology of migration and the buyers, right? So some locals are really leaving because it's not the same city that it used to be. They just don't enjoy it anymore because they long for the good old days. But net inbound migration is still high, especially from places like California, Chicago, Florida. The truth is that buyers are just being a little bit more cautious these days. They're keeping an eye on things like rate hikes and inflation and the cost of living overall nationwide right now. We're dealing with a little bit of market uncertainty across the country. So that leads me to say that a lot of people are making a strategic choice to kind of invest and move to the suburbs instead of the city. In places like Dripping Springs, Buda, Kyle, Pflugerville, Round Rock, your dollar just goes a lot farther, and the upside to the investment potential is, in my opinion, gonna be a little bit higher, right? Those places still have a lot of growth to take place as the city of Austin and the surrounding area grows. Plus, in areas like that, you might be able to find a good school system, less traffic, more space, and really kind of a, small town charm and good small community vibe. So to answer the question, is it too late to move to Austin? I don't think so. I think it could be, but only if you move for the wrong reasons or you pick the wrong neighborhood. Austin's not a quick win anymore, it's a long-term lifestyle and investment play. So ultimately, you've got to know your goals. You have to pick your neighborhood very, very wisely, or your suburb. And you've got to have somebody in your corner that can help guide you through the whole process, start to finish, from just looking to closed on your dream home. The key here is really alignment. You've got to align your budget, your lifestyle, what commute you're gonna have, and kind of future-proof your investment. I built an Austin relocation guide that's gonna outline what to do, what to look for, and where to go when you visit, so you can actually get to know the city like a local before you decide on where you want to look into living. Because you can always change things like the bathroom finish out, the countertops in the kitchen, add an island, redo a patio, but you can't change the location of the home that you buy. So you really need to make sure that you're comfortable with the area, and then you can find the perfect home. And don't forget to subscribe. I release new videos every single week to help you get to know the city of Austin like a local. I'll always show you the good, the bad, the ugly, and the weird of Austin. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I actually make these videos so that I can connect to and talk with people just like you. I love helping people move to this awesome city, and I do want to hear from you, so don't be shy. My number's on the screen. Pick up the phone, give me a call, give me a text message, and we can kind of come up with a custom tailored plan that suits your needs and make sure that you make a smart move, not just a move.